Hey guys, and welcome to the first video in this new series, TQ Cooking Tips for the Blind and Low Vision. In this series, I will share tips for performing various actions in the kitchen, such as storing and identifying items, lighting the stove, baking, frying, and much more. In today's video, we will be going over some general tips in the kitchen, as well as tips for storing, organizing, and identifying items in your kitchen. This series promises to be an exciting one, so get comfy and take notes. Please be sure to like the video if you love the content, subscribe if you're new, and to turn on that notification bell to be alerted whenever I post the next video in the series. Also, share it with all your friends, especially in the blind and visually impaired community, because we want to get everybody on this road of independence in their kitchen cooking their own food. Also note that the instrumentals for this video have been provided by Inner Sanctum Entertainment Ltd. But without further ado, let's get right into it. Cooking can be challenging or even scary for a person who is blind or visually impaired, but there are a few strategies that you can use to make the process much easier. It's great when you can give fast food a break and let your creative juices flow in the kitchen while you prepare your own meal just how you like it. It's a nice feeling when you can get up and do something for yourself without fully depending on others. So today, I'm going to share some cooking tips with you to get you on that path of independence. First, we will start with some general tips for when you're cooking in the kitchen. Get to know your space. You want to make sure to get yourself familiar with the space in your kitchen. Practice walking around in the space and familiarizing yourself with where everything is. Get to know which appliance does what and how to use them. This will be helpful when it's time to move around in your kitchen and start cooking. It will also help to prevent accidents from happening. Free the area of any obstacles or danger. Ensure that any spills on the floor are dried up to prevent you from slipping. Also, make sure that any objects in the way, such as kitchen stools, are put away. This is so that you will not bump into them and spill something, or even fall. Also, check to make sure that sharp objects such as knives are not left dangerously, such as on the edge of the counter or with their handles hanging off. Always store your sharp objects pointing down, and when feeling or searching on surfaces or in the sink, always be sure to tap lightly as to prevent any piercing from sharp objects. Give yourself enough time when cooking. You don't want to be stressed, tired, or rushing when handling items in the kitchen, especially hot or sharp ones. This, as well as any distractions, can result in accidents or mistakes in the kitchen. Gather everything that you will need before you start cooking. You don't want to be running all over the kitchen looking for items while the stove is lit and the pot is waiting for you on the stove. This is bound to cause an accident in the kitchen. Make adjustments to your kitchen to make it accessible. There are various adjustments that you can make to the layout of your kitchen to make it more accessible. This will vary based on how your kitchen is set up. For example, I had a major issue with the persons in my house leaving the upper cupboard doors open in the kitchen. Even though you can sometimes sense when the door is near you, I was getting tired of walking cautiously in my own space. So, we decided to get cupboards with sliding doors instead. If you can afford it, or if you have access to some grant or fund in your country to get this done, this is a great idea. These are much better, as I no longer have to be worrying about walking straight into a cupboard door. And they can also prove to be cheaper than cupboards made out of treated lumber. Stop dwelling on the facts that you're not seeing and focus on using your other senses such as tasting, touching, smelling, and hearing. If you practice using a combination of these senses in the kitchen, you will master the skill in no time. Don't go into the kitchen with a sense of fear. Being fearful will get you nowhere, and a jumpy attitude is more likely to cause accidents in the kitchen. Just be calm and tell yourself that you got this. You may not get it perfect the first time, but practice makes perfect. Now, let's move on to tips for storing and identifying items in the kitchen. How well you are able to store, organize, and identify the items in your kitchen will determine the simplicity and efficiency of the cooking process. Here are some tips to help you get this done. It is best to store similar things together. So, you would store your pots and your pans in one section, your plates and dishes in one section, your utensils in one section, your cups in one section, your sauces and seasoning in one section, your stuff like rice, sugar, and flour in one section, and your cans in another section. It is good practice to have a section for similar items in your fridge as well. This is just an example of how to group your items. You will have to group them based on the items that you have in your kitchen, just to make sure that at the end of the day, you know where everything is. Store your appliances in safe places. Find a safe and accessible place for all your appliances and don't store heavy items too high. Store the items that you use more often closer to your reach. Put the items that you use once in a while or on rare occasions on the higher shelves and the ones that you use almost every day on the lower shelves. In the fridge, store the items that you use more often to the front of the shelves or in the door. You can even put some of the things that you use every time when you cook on the counter. For example, I keep my salt and my cooking oil on the counter. Now, in order to properly label your items and store them away, you would first need to identify them. It is best to do this as soon as the items come from the store. I personally declare myself as the packer in the household. When anything new is bought, I make it my responsibility to pack them away so that I know where everything is. I don't know about you, but I like to be independent in whatever I am doing. Here are some tips for identifying items in your kitchen. You can use your sense of hearing, touch, and taste to help you identify some of the items. Based on the feel of some items such as rice, flour, or a box of milk, you can probably identify them without any help. You may not be at this level, but there are some persons who can tell the difference between similar items by their weight or sound and feel when they shake a bottle or tin. For example, when shaking a bottle, the ketchup will feel thicker than the cooking oil. I personally can tell the sugar different from the cornmeal and the milk powder different from the packaged salt just by feeling the texture of the content in the bag. Some persons also use their taste to determine what is in some bottles or packages, but I personally wouldn't recommend that. But to each his own. Now, for the items that you can't identify on your own, you would need some help with identifying them. Here are some methods that you can use. Ask for some sighted help. Because they don't mind, I generally ask my mother or someone that is near me to tell me what the item is. But if no one is around or they are busy, I would use an app called Be My Eyes to call a live representative and ask them to identify the item for me. This app is easy to use and is available on both iOS and Android. Use an AI app to read the label. If I don't feel like using any of the other methods, I would use one of the AI apps on my phone to try to read the label of the items. Some of these apps include Seeing AI and Envision AI for iOS users, Google Lookout and Sullivan Plus for Android users, and SuperSense for both devices. With these apps, you would put it into text recognition mode, point your camera to the label of the item, and it will try to recognize and read out the text to you. Or you can take a picture of the label and run it through the OCR of the app. Please note that this is artificial intelligence, therefore there is no guarantee that it will be correct. This is why these AI apps are my last resort. Once you have identified each item, there are various methods that you can use to mark or label them. There are a lot out there, but here are some that I use. Using Velcro strips, sticky markers or dots, braille markers, or tape. You can use any one of these sticky items with various strategies to label your grocery items. For example, you can cut off a piece of it and place it on the top of the tin corn, but for something else like the baked beans, you can place it on the side. Or, butter beans can have a longer piece taped onto it, or another type of tin food can have more than one piece on it. These are just some examples, but you can be creative and come up with some clever ways to use these items to label your groceries. Using elastic bands. You can also use elastic bands to label your items. For example, you can tell that the browning is the one with the elastic band around it and the hot pepper sauce is the one with the tape on it. For low vision persons, you can use large print labels. You can possibly use one of those tapes that can be written on and something like a marker to make large print labels for your items. Use differently shaped bottles or containers to store some of your products. For some of your products that come in bottles, for example, ketchup or cooking oil, or any other products that you can think of using this method with, you can get some uniquely shaped bottles or containers to store them in once you have identified them. For example, you could identify the ketchup bottle different from the one for the cooking oil based on the shape, size, or the type of cover on it. You can also place your items such as your salt or your sugar in uniquely shaped containers as well. So those are all the tips that I have for labeling the items in your kitchen. You can use one or a combination of these strategies to label not only your food items, but also the buttons on your appliances. But those are all the techniques that I have for storing, organizing, and identifying the items in your kitchen. I am sure that there are some more out there, but these are the ones that I use. If you are familiar with any of these tips, or you have any new ones to share with me, please let me know in the comments down below. You can also find and download the transcript for this video via a link in the description below, which will take you to its location on my website. But that is it for this video. Stay tuned for the next video in this series, where I will give you tips for doing other activities in the kitchen, such as lighting the stove. Please remember to like the video if you love the content, subscribe if you're new, and to turn on that notification bell to be alerted whenever I post the next video. Also remember to share it with others. You don't know what clicking that share button could mean for somebody else. Thanks again for watching, guys. Remember that I love you, and I'll see you next time.